The decision for this driver to either push that gas to the metal or to have a more relaxing drive will depend on a series of factors. One factor will be, do I need to be somewhere at a specific time? What is the current time? What is my average speed? What is my current level of fuel? And why not? What is the current status with the engine? Is it warming up or not? So as you can see, all these decisions will depend on what is happening here. This is called the instrument cluster. So we make decisions based on measurements, and just like we take decisions like driving, when we're driving to destination, in business is exactly the same. We need to measure things so that we can make decisions. Well, just like in the example of driving a car, in business it is exactly the same, or in words of Peter Drucker, or Peter Drucker, because since he was Austrian, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. So this module 3 is about that. It's about business performance metrics, also known as KPIs. KPIs is an acronym, which I will explain in a minute. Okay, so what I expect you to learn is the following. First, to be aware or to learn the advantages and limitations of KPIs. And secondly, what are the most common competitive objectives for business success? Let us start with the first part. Just like in the example of driving a car, you may be confronted with the following situation. Will I arrive to school on time? To answer to that question might depend on what you see right here on your instrument cluster. You have here information about the current time. You have also information about your average speed. You also have further information such as the temperature of your engine, which in some cases might be relevant, and what is super relevant is your fuel status. Also relevant might be if there is some kind of warning light, right? Because the combination of all these variables that you see here will help you to make a decision, such as to accelerate your car, to stop by at a gas station, or whatever is necessary to arrive on time. And just like you do all these series of decisions, sometimes very fast, in business is the same. But managers rely on dashboards that look just like this. So this is a business KPI dashboard. And here, well, the questions they would like to answer is, will I meet my business goals for this time period? So here is just an example of a dashboard that is also very visual. You can see here some gauges on top. You can also see some run charts and bar charts. And you can also see a combination of colors which resemble the traffic light system, because quickly you can interpret that if you are in a green area, that is good, and if you are in a red area, well, it's the opposite, you are in a bad situation. So then you can, as a manager, make a decision. This, what you see here, is just an example. There are companies that actually design dashboards for companies. What matters is what exactly you need to measure and what is the best format as to show that data. There is a reason why here, for instance, they rely on run charts, data through time. This is time series. And there is a reason why here the data is shown as bars. So just be careful here. Whenever you have to select a chart to show data, don't just go careless with that. There is a reason why you have these options. Some data are better portrayed as run charts, pie charts, bar charts. Yeah, so think about that. All right, so what about KPIs? Well, KPIs stands for key performance indicators, and I can tell you that these are metrics, obviously, and these are financial metrics, but it's not only financial metrics. You also have non-financial metrics. At the end, you need to measure whatever is important for your business. People like to call this importance the key business drivers, KPIs, but they also like to call it the critical success factors. For example, take this gentleman here on top of the motorcycle. He seems like he's looking for an address, and the reason is because he needs to deliver that tasty salami pizza on time. And on time means within 30 minutes, no more than that. That is a promise that Domino's Pizza is doing to its clients. And because that is a promise, well, on-time delivery is going to be measured. And it's maybe going to be measured in percentage, as if what is the percentage of our on-time deliveries on a given time? Like, for instance, a month, a week, a day. And depending on historical data and depending on the status quo of this KPI, you might take some decisions, right? You might hire more people, get faster motorcycles instead of this kind of scooter, provide the drivers with some kind of technology like GPS, etc., etc. Okay, so KPIs can come on different forms, but mainly we can categorize them as quantitative or qualitative, as we see here. Now, with quantitative, it's obvious that we're talking about times, like a lead time, minutes, rates, like proportions, values like money, amounts, quantities, or frequencies, how often this happens. Whereas qualitative, well, think about degree of satisfaction. This could be a Likert scale, you know, these scales in which you can rate a service from 1 to 5. By the way, parenthesis here, be careful. These are not continuous data. These are categorical data. So it's a big mistake to make averages, for example. You cannot make averages. You cannot treat these figures as if they would be continuous data. These are categorical. So these are degrees of satisfaction, likelihood of doing something, perceptions, desire or need or level of agreement. So everything is about levels, degrees. These are qualitative data. And here we have some examples. For instance, quantitative, we have inventory levels, cost, transportation cost, sales per employee, number of accidents on a given time period. And qualitative, we can also measure customer satisfaction. I don't know, from the scale of 1 to 5 might be a 4. Yeah. Employee engagement, motivation level. I mean, these are intangible characteristics, yet crucial or critical to your business. So at the end, when thinking about KPIs, see it like in this way. What would be the right portfolio, the right combination of KPIs that a manager should have in this business without overloading this manager with data? You know, it's not, you want to have the dashboard of a car. You don't want to have the dashboard of an, I don't know, a Boeing 747 or something like that. Okay, so one important thing to keep in mind is the following. KPI is not just about measuring. You always need to contrast whatever you're measuring with a standard, with a baseline. The baseline can be a target, like what we see here in this picture. We see in this example a timeline, and we see the percentage of on-time deliveries during that time. So you can see some fluctuations. You can see that sometimes we do our job very good, but sometimes in a given period of time we don't. So whenever we are confronted with such situation, we are having a problem, because in business, problems are deviations or gaps from an expectation, here highlighted in red. So you can see from this period of time something was going on, then suddenly it became good, and then again wrong. We would like to know, why is that? What do you think? If this would be Domino's Pizza, it could be so many factors. It could be related to the drivers. It could be related to the weather, for example. It could be related to the sudden number of orders that we received on a given time, which exceeded our capacity. It could be due to so many reasons that we need to investigate in order to learn, right? What else can I tell you about these targets? Well, here is just a small note. You want to have your targets SMART, where SMART is an acronym. That means you want to measure something specific, like What exactly do you want to achieve? On-time delivery, cost. Therefore, it should be measurable. You should be able to measure that. Your target should be achievable. Have a look. The target here is just 80%. It's not 100%. Obviously, 100% is the ideal case, but why setting up a target that nobody will reach? We want to have a realistic, good target. It should make sense. Like on-time delivery for Domino's Pizza, well, it does make sense. And it should be time-bounded, as we see here with this run chart, because we can see patterns, we can see seasonalities, fluctuations that we can later investigate. Another important aspect that you need to keep in mind is the so-called resolution. So what is resolution? I mean, think about cameras or TVs. People talk about the level of resolution. In this case, it's the same. For instance, we can measure inventory levels. We can measure it either on a resolution, on a very, very low level resolution like monthly base, as we can see in these blue bars, or we can measure those inventory levels on a high level resolution as daily, as we can see in these red lines. Now, what do you notice here? What can you conclude out of this picture? There is something interesting going on here. Have a look. If you measure everything on a very low level resolution, like in this case a monthly base, you might conclude as a manager that your inventory levels are behaving on a very predictable manner. They are more or less the same every month. So you might conclude that your process is under control, is predictable, it's just running smoothly, basically. Whereas in the moment you increase the resolution, you will encounter with the fluctuations you see here. And maybe some of these fluctuations are not acceptable. So depending on the resolution level, that will depend on the type of decision that you might want to take. Therefore, deciding for the right level of the solution is crucial, because you want to extract the information that is going to help you to make decisions. All right, so continuing with this, we can also say that KPIs can have limitations. So you have to realize the following. Many people's careers will depend on how good their KPIs are. That means they will make these numbers look good. They will fudge the numbers, as it is known in business. So here you can see in this picture, everything seems going superb, growing through time, all these KPIs. But the reality is the following. The bottom line of the business is that we are not making more money, we are not more productive, there is nothing changing at all. So we have to be careful on how we interpret the data that is available to us. Because sometimes companies, they like to look good to others, especially those called investors, right? And there are many cases, and this is just to show you how real this fudging number is. This is an article that you can find on this link on CBS News, and it's about a Japanese company, Toshiba, which in this case inflated profits. Think about this for a second. Maybe you're a student and you're doing a research, and then you go to Toshiba financial statements, and then you see these nice figures, these very nice, elegant reports with very nice, healthy numbers, and it turns out that it's all fake. These numbers were inflated. These numbers were not real. In other words, top managers set unrealistic earning targets, and that pushed people to fudge their numbers. You see the problem here? That happens quite a lot. This could be seen as one of the KPIs or one of the limitations that KPIs can have. Now, there are more limitations. Sometimes within an organization, KPIs might not be aligned with each other. And here's just an example. You see two individuals. Let's say on the left side, you see sales, And on the right side, you see finance. Now, sales is being measured by, well, how much you sell to your customers. But it could be that in this company, selling means pushing products without actually receiving the money. That means that you're giving these customers credits. That means that they will pay you later. So, under the realm of sales, on the universe of sales, the numbers are looking great. Sales are just going up. But on the realm of finance, your receivables, well, they look terrible because people, clients, owe you every time more and more money. In other words, there is a leverage here and you're paying for the business of your customers, in other words, which is not good for you, I suppose. So you can see here, this could be the same company and they could have conflicting KPIs. So let's go back to that dashboard. If you want to design a dashboard, you have to make sure that you don't have these kind of contradictions. You want to make sure that all these goals and targets that you have established, they are aligned, they are contributing with each other. Now, there is another problem here, and that's the following. It might also be that you don't measure what you are supposed to measure. For instance, very often companies in Europe, in the US, they like to procure their raw materials in Asian countries. Why? Because it's cheaper, and sometimes it's just about a fraction of a percentage what is cheaper. What it doesn't take into account are all the risks, all the situations like delays, low quality standards, etc., that you might incur by obtaining goods, raw materials from so far away. Perhaps localizing, although might be expensive, it's cheaper in the long run. So once again, a KPI that is just based on cost might not be enough or might not give you the full picture that you need to have. Okay, so lastly, we can categorize KPIs by means of different attributes, and here we have 7 types of attributes. We can say, for example, we have responsiveness, we have reliability, we have agility, cost-oriented, asset management efficiency, quality, and productivity. Okay, so whenever we are talking about responsiveness, we're talking about being fast. And being fast can be measured by different type of metrics. Here are just some of the examples. Cycle times, if you're talking about a production environment. Lead time, which is an elapsed time. So cycle time is more like a rate, by the way, it's more like a proportion, whereas lead time is just time. Now, we can also measure reliability. Reliability measures how predictable a process is, how predictable a supplier is. You can measure the reliability of deliveries, by the way. So you can have the so-called perfect order, which is the order that is arrive on time and also in full, which is complete. You can also measure these attributes by separate. So have we received our goods on time? Yes. Did those goods that we receive on time were received complete? Because very often an order contains a combination, a portfolio of goods, and not every good is available. So you get a partial, let's say, delivery. So what is the situation there? You can measure, by the way, here, on time in percentage, in full in percentage. And if you multiply these two, that's this one, that is OTIF, on time in full. Now we can also measure the ability to be flexible, which is called agility. So we also have metrics like supply chain adaptability metrics, which I will show you in the following part of this module 3. We can also measure cost, like cost of goods sold, labor cost, material cost, transportation cost, etc. We can also measure the efficiency of how good we manage our assets, how good we utilize our assets. And I'm talking here about cash to cash cycles, inventory days, capacity utilization. We can of course measure quality level, how effective. Effective is about doing the right things. So we want to deliver a good that fulfills our customer expectations. So we can do that by Sigma level. For example, maybe you have a 6 Sigma level, you have a 4 Sigma level, and a Sigma level tells you kind of like the percentage, it's an estimate of how many defects out of 1,000,000 you are producing in your system. That is also known as DPMOs, by the way. You can also measure productivity levels, which is, coming back, how efficient your process is. Don't confuse effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness is about doing the right things, and efficiency is about doing things right. So you want to maximize your resources, you want to maximize your labor, your manpower. So it's more about outputs and inputs. So these are the families of competitive objectives that usually companies are striving for. So a combination of these metrics is something you might want to see on your dashboard. If you want to learn more about metrics in a specific related to supply chain, go ahead and go to this link. You will find a page where all this will be explained further. For now, that's all. Thanks again for your attention, and I wait for you in the second part of Module 3. Bye-bye.